Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you about the movie, Last Sentinel. Watch out for spoilers. In the year 2063, due to global warming, there are only two small continents left on the planet, which have declared war on each other in a struggle for the remaining resources. Between the two continents, on neutral waters, is a military outpost, the Sentinel, guarded by 4 soldiers. The 2-year contract is up, 3 months have passed, but there is still no rescue team. Before the big storm, they decide to fish, and the catch comes out very big. The approaching storm is very strong, and Officer Hendricks orders Baines to secure the nuclear bomb guarding the outpost. Sullivan and Cassidy finish their work on the platform, but the net with the fish is blown off. The wave is rapidly approaching the outpost. Baines gets his arm stuck between the tubes and nearly drowns. The wave approaches, and fortunately the outpost survives it. There is very little food left, and the rescue ship may not even have been sent. Baines is furious that Sullivan and Cassidy have lost the fish. Sullivan retaliates by insulting Baines for taking the kitchen apart. Hendricks silences everyone and asks for a damage report. Baines says it's really bad, but the officer says he'll fix it. Baines doesn't understand why they shouldn't be told that their contract is over. But Hendricks reminds them that satellite communication is for reports only. Sullivan sends a report that there are no incidents. Sullivan visits Hendricks and they joke about the airmen. Sullivan spots a ship in the distance and Cassidy confirms the ship on the radar. The officer gives orders to Baines to prepare weapons. Sullivan doesn't understand why. Cassidy tries to contact the ship, but there is no response. Cassidy tries to contact on the loudspeaker, but gets no response either. The officer orders Sullivan to launch the boat and check on the ship. Sullivan approaches the ship, he calls out to the men, but no one answers. Sullivan climbs aboard and cautiously looks around. Inside, he finds an untouched supply of food. Sullivan doesn't answer and the officer decides he's been killed, so he prepares to attack the ship. Sullivan finds 4 sets of uniforms. Hendricks has his weapons ready to attack and waits for Sullivan to respond, but Sullivan quietly eats chocolate. At the last moment, he responds, and the officer cancels the launch. Sullivan tows the ship to the outpost. Cassidy looks at a picture of the family and then makes love to Sullivan. They take a bath with iodine to get rid of the radiation and also speculate what has become of the ship's crew. Sullivan says to report the ship, but Hendricks will not report until after he checks the ship himself. Baines restores power. Hendricks records the ship's route to make a route. The officer compiles a route from the recorded data. Sullivan and Cassidy discuss what it was like before global warming. Cassidy says that the people of the past ruined everything themselves. Sullivan says he secretly sent a message over the comms and the answer will be tomorrow. Hendricks doesn't understand why the others are suspiciously gathered at the telegraph office. Baines tells the officer that Sullivan sent the message. The telegraph gets a reply and everyone realizes that it is the same message that Sullivan sent during the night. It becomes clear that no one received it and it came back and the other messages Sullivan sent were his. At night, Baines sneaks onto the ship. Sullivan doesn't find him, but then Baines returns and Sullivan demands an explanation. They have a drink together and Baines talks about his home and family. The nuclear bomb at the outpost could destroy 2 continents and Sullivan doesn't understand why it's needed. Baines says he can fix the ship. Sullivan tells of Cassidy's plan. They have 3 days to sail before the big storm hits. Sullivan and Baines successfully start the engine. Hendricks orders the ship disassembled, but Sullivan says they need to sail now. They vote, but the officer threatens a gun and gives other orders. Everyone is furious and thinks Hendricks has lost his mind. Cassidy decides to talk to him herself. Hendricks says it is their duty to guard the bomb. Cassidy tells him not to lose 2 more soldiers. Sullivan and Baines plan to disable the bomb and capture Hendricks. Cassidy's argument helped and Hendricks agrees. He says 2 will sail out and 2 will stay. Cassidy and an officer stay to guard the outpost. Sullivan doesn't understand why Cassidy chooses to stay. He offers to stay instead of her because he loves her, but Cassidy says it's not up to him. She says she doesn't love him and then cries. Hendricks gives a letter to pass on and says that people on the other mainland are just like them. Hendricks continues to plot the route and realizes that the ship has deliberately deviated from the outpost. The officer doesn't decide to report it to Cassidy. A siren sounds, someone approaches, and Hendricks gives the order to stand by. They prepare a cannon to attack and fire, but miss. Cassidy notices that their ship is missing, and Baines and Sullivan realize it's their ship. Hendricks aims at them and tells them to choose. Baines refuses to shoot, and Hendricks shoots him in the ear. Sullivan then fires his cannon and the ship explodes, and Cassidy stuns the officer. Everyone is desperate for what happened. They try to reconnect, but to no avail. Hendricks needs a bath of iodine, but Baines refuses to let him out and also refuses to work. Sullivan and Cassidy are left to check all the channels on the telegraph to find a worker. Cassidy says she loves him, and those words meant nothing. Sullivan brings food for Hendricks and asks why he changed his mind. Hendricks talks about how the ship was here months ago. It is unclear why the ship changed course. The officer assumes someone is a traitor. Sullivan doesn't believe him and leaves. Sullivan tries to signal on the comms again, and Baines has a drink in his workshop. Cassidy shows a picture of his family to Sullivan, telling him that the family was killed by enemies. In the morning, Sullivan finds Cassidy asleep. Baines comes to Cassidy and tells her about her lost future, then begins strangling her. Cassidy fights him off, but Baines takes the keys from her to set off the bomb. Cassidy tells Sullivan, and they hear Baines talking on the loudspeaker. Cassidy notices that the keys are missing. Baines prepares to detonate the bomb. Cassidy and Sullivan run over to Baines and try to calm him down, saying that his family should live. Baines cries and says he just forgot the last digit of the code. Sullivan is about to let Hendricks out, but Baines says he tried to kill him earlier, but he was so gone. Sullivan sees an open window, realizing that he killed himself, and Baines is looking at the bomb. Sullivan decides to read the letter he was supposed to deliver to the mainland. In the letter, Hendricks wants to continue in command. Cassidy shows Baines the workshop and says he is feeling much better. Baines tells him that his wife was pregnant and he did not see the baby. Sullivan forgives Baines for what he did. He gives Cassidy a gun just in case. Baines and Cassidy swim to a pile of garbage. Sullivan decides to catch fish and finds Hendricks' body with a gunshot wound on his forehead. It becomes clear that someone has killed him and a traitor is among them. Sullivan checks his friend's files. Sullivan has his suspicions. He realizes that the beacon can easily be removed. It becomes clear that someone has taken the ship off course and disposed of the crew. Sullivan sees that the boat returns with only one person. Cassidy returns and says that Baines went for the plastic and died. Sullivan realizes she is a traitor, but pretends nothing happened. In the morning, Cassidy can't find Sullivan and tries to radio in. He then reports over the radio that he knows Cassidy is an assassin working for the enemy. Sullivan activates the bomb and Cassidy tries to stop him. Cassidy says her homeland is sinking and she needs the bomb. The charge activates, but there is no explosion. The phrase that Baines said is shown. It becomes clear that he has managed to reprogram the bomb so that no one can use it. Sullivan and Cassidy are sitting at the table. Cassidy says that no matter what side they are on now, they will protect the outpost from any threat. That's where the movie, Last Sentinel, ends. An interesting film about what people are willing to do for their goals and beliefs. Subscribe to the channel and like it. Thanks for watching.